We see from this story that a good man is brought down first by disbelief in God's promises. Like I pointed out, Solomon's first problem was not out of control sexual lust. His first problem was that he didn't trust God enough to fully rely on him. In fact, if you want to think about it this way, 70% of his problem was unbelief, and only 30% of his lust. 30% of his problem was lust. Because of his 1,000 wives, 700 of them were political marriages, not sexually motivated. Now, that is almost always the case. The root core of all sin is unbelief. If you peel back the layers of any area of sin or compromise in your life, there you're going to find the core, the sin of unbelief. When I talk to high school students, which I've done several times this summer, who will not offer up their lives fully to Jesus, I always tell them, it's really a belief problem. See, you think that following Jesus is going to make you miserable. And that's the real question that you got to deal with. Is Jesus trustworthy of the offering of your life? Can you trust Jesus with all these areas that you're afraid of? In whatever area of your life you're not fully obeying God, it's because that's an area where you are afraid of being let down in that area, and you don't really feel like you can trust anybody else with it except for yourself. So whatever area of your life you are not obeying God in is an area you just don't trust him in. Let me tell you some of the biggest ones that I see as a pastor. Here's number one, romance. You just feel like I can't do it God's way because God's going to mess that up. I got to take this into my hands. So I'm going to date somebody I shouldn't be dating, or we're not going to do it on God's timing, or whatever. A second way I see a lot is money. People feel like, well, I just don't know if I can trust what God says about money. And so, yeah, I know he says to give him the first and the best, and Christians usually, in the Bible, interpret that as at least the first 10%, but no, I'm not going to do that because what happens if we go through a rainy day? What happens if I have a bill I can't pay? How can I actually be happy in life if I take a 10 or 20% reduction in my expendable income in the month? And I know what God says about how he'll multiply and bless me, but I just don't know if I really trust that with something that important. You just don't really trust him. That's why you can't get over that hurdle of obedience. Does that make sense? Here's another one. Forgiveness. I see it happen a lot. Somebody's like, I know God wants me to forgive. I know that, but if I forgive them, then they're never really going to understand how bad they hurt me, and I'm just going to get hurt again. And so I'm going to have to hold on to this bitterness because I don't trust God enough to do what he says. Or maybe life throws a curveball at you, and all of a sudden you get laid off from the job, or you get cut from the squad, or you don't get into the school, or you get an unexpected medical diagnosis, and your first impulse is, God doesn't have a plan. He fell asleep, or it's not a good plan. And so you kind of take back control of your life and you live angry at him because you just don't know if you can trust him with that area. The question that I have for you is, what happened to Solomon? Is it happening to you? The root cause of all of Solomon's problems was not sexual lust. The root problem was he felt insecure and felt like he needed to hedge his bet by not letting God have control of an area. Where is that happening to you? Where have you not let go? Where can you not trust God? Where are you hedging your bet through small areas of compromise and not letting go of things that God's told you to let go of?